We have a brand. New York has a brand. And when people see it, it means something. You know, when we go there, it's not, Kansas doesn't have a brand. When you go there, okay, you're from Kansas. No. Well, you know what? But New York has a brand.
Many months later.
True that some of the migrants are asking to go to Canada and we're getting them a bus ticket?
An amazing partnership with Catholic Charities, who they have a history of being there for those in need. Those who are seeking to go somewhere else, not we're pushing or forcing. If they're seeking to go somewhere else, we are helping in the reticketing process. What we found that people had other destinations, but they were being compelled only to come to New York City, and we are assisting in interviewing those who seek to go somewhere else. Some want to go to Canada. Some wants to go to warmer states, and we are there for them as they continue to move on with.
Yes, welcome back. New York has a brand. Recently, Fox News published an article. Migrants are leaving New York City and heading north into Canada on taxpayer-funded buses. According to a new report from the New York Post, the Big Apple is the center of the migrant crisis on the East Coast after thousands of illegal migrants have flooded the city, with some living in rare taxpayer-funded hotels rooms. But not all migrants are pleased with life in the city, telling the New York Post that they would rather accept free ticket for a ride-up not to Canada and better opportunities in a country with lower rates of homelessness and drug. If you realize this same mayor, what he said some few months ago.
So, Mr. Mayor, the last time we talked, nearly 11,000 migrants had been sent to New York City from Texas. You've not been shy about talking about the strain the migrants have put on city services. Have you given any thought to sending the migrants back to Texas or any place outside of New York City?
No, I don't think that's appropriate. And it just really goes in contradiction to who we believe we are, not only as a country, but particularly as a city. This is a city that has right to shelter, and it's a safe haven.
But now they are taking migrants to Canada. That is to tell you the level of hypocrisy existing in these. Yes, this has been a major issue since last year. I did a couple of videos pertaining to what is going on. I realized Mayor Adams actually rejected this initially. Some said there was no issue. When they started sending migrants to some of their cities, they started realizing what was happening. They have been talking about the issue of the border sometime. These people never saw it coming. Now, they are seeing the consequences of what is happening. Mayor Adam made it clear that his city is very safe. It's a safe haven for migrants, but now some are fleeing the city because of homeless people and drugs. And that is to tell you a lot. That is to tell you a lot of what is going on. You cannot actually shy away from reality. He said New York has a brand, and this is the brand we are seeing today. He bragged. You saw at the beginning of the clip. Him bragging.
Spent the night here at the Brooklyn Cruise Terminal. Going to go out and speak to some of the men, have something to eat. This was just a real good setting to bring people to as they transition. I want to thank the Assemblyman and Sham Barron, homeless advocate, for joining us and really, coalescing with these men as we do our part.
Yes, it is said that you cannot know what somebody is passing through until that same thing happened to you. When this issue of migrant was surfacing on social media, people like these were very comfortable. But now they are understanding what others were going through. You have seen Mayor Adams sitting down on the floor.
Are now refusing to leave as the city tries to move them into a newly opened shelter. David Lee Miller is live here in Manhattan. He's got more on that for us. David Lee.
Sandra, at this hour, there is a standoff taking place between the migrants and New York City officials. You can take a look behind me and you can get a glimpse of what's taking place here just outside Hell's Kitchen neighborhood in Manhattan. A few dozen migrants living on the street say they will not move. All of them are single men who were told this weekend they had to leave their rooms at a West Side hotel in order to make room for migrants with families, including women and children. The plan was for all the single men to be relocated to a cruise line terminal in Brooklyn that has been set up as a temporary shelter. Many of the migrants say the terminal is not acceptable and want better quality housing. They are now not being allowed back into the hotel. A few dozen migrants remain there. They refuse to leave. Some holdouts were removed this afternoon. A number boarded buses taking them to that Brooklyn site, while just as many decided to camp outside on the street, outside the hotel. Now, New York City homeless outreach workers have tried and failed to convince the men that living on the street is not an option, although the migrants did agree to remove about a dozen or so tents. One of the migrants from the Dominican Republic, who said his name was Wilson, broke down in tears discussing his plight. He told me he came here to work and is not being treated humanely. He said the shelter is cold, uncomfortable, and does not have enough bathrooms. He says it's not far from the subway and that they lock the doors at 11 o'clock, which makes it difficult for him to keep a job. The mayor's office, for its part, issued a statement that reads in part, and I quote, "The facilities at Brooklyn Cruise Terminal will provide the same services as every other humanitarian relief center in the city, and the scheduled relocations to Brooklyn Cruise Terminal this weekend took place as planned. We remained in serious need of support from both our state and federal governments." So at this hour, it's not certain what's going to happen to the migrants who are living on the street. Temperatures right now hovering around 50 degrees. Later this week, they're expected to drop significantly into the 20s. These migrants simply do not have the clothing and the gear to withstand those type of temperatures. Meanwhile, Mayor Adams is saying that the city is overwhelmed by the sheer number of migrants, 46,000 since spring. The migrants, for their part, say,
We have a brand. New York has a brand. And when people see it, it means something. You know, when we go there, it's not, Kansas doesn't have a brand.